It's July. It's July. How is it July already? How? Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica and I am ThisKiwi. Today we are going to go through the mid-year freakout tag, which every booktuber has done already, and I'm a little bit late to the party, but that's okay. This was originally created back in 2012 by Ali and Chami. If I can link them down below, I will. It was a while ago, it was back in 2012, but I will leave links to relevant people where I can. There are 15 questions to answer, and let's just get started. Okay, so question number 1 is the best book so far, and that would be Piranesi. You guys have heard me talking about this. It has not changed, and this was actually either the first or one of the first books that I read this year. I know it was in January, and I mean, I've had other 5-star reads that weren't Piranesi, but Piranesi is one that has stuck with me. Piranesi is one that I keep coming back to and keep thinking about, and still need to get my hands on the physical book. But probably the closest runner-up to that would be The Kitchen Boy, and The Tattooist of Auschwitz was a really good book as well. That is a great contender for Piranesi. All of them made me ponder, all of them made me feel things, and so yeah, you kind of got my top 3 books of the year. Question number 2 is, what is the best sequel you have read? And I'm going to be honest, I haven't read a whole lot of sequels this year. I reread A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in the Ashtar series, and I mean, obviously that was a 5-star. Still was. Sequels that I've read this year, I'd have to say that would have to be Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Would be the best sequel by far that I have read. And it's actually one of the best books of the year for me. Pretty much perfect for me in terms of writing, action, schooling, banter, character development, and obviously sad shit that makes you cry. Or try to. I loved it. Question number 3 is, what new releases do you want to read? And that one is kind of a hard one for me because I don't really have a lot of room for new releases, but I have heard Megan from Meg with Books talk about this a lot, and that is The Last Murder at the End of the World. And even though I'm not a murder mystery thriller kind of girly, this one sounded really interesting, and I think I just need the right one to get me into the genre, and I feel like this could be it. So this follows a group of people who are essentially the last people on Earth, and one of the scientists is murdered, so they need to figure out who killed him. But the trick with it is there is some kind of amnesia that is happening, so everybody that's there has absolutely no idea what's happened, and to my understanding, even the killer has no idea that they have done it, and that just sounds really interesting to me. Question number 4 is, what is some of your most anticipated releases of the second half of the year? And again, this one was a really hard one for me to answer. If anybody knows where to go to get really good resources and information about new releases, then do let me know, because I don't really know where to look. I would, however, be very interested to read A House of the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, so I can read the release that is coming mid-September this year. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot about this series, but I believe it is a fantasy and has something to do with an orphanage of magical kids. I've heard nothing but great things about Cerulean Sea, and so I really want to go into the series relatively blind. The other one that I wouldn't mind reading is the second book to the Lakefront Billionaires series by Lauren Asher, and that is called Love Unwritten. And this looks to be about a musician who's a hopeless romantic and a single dad as well. And so I quite enjoyed Love Redesigned. I gave it a 4 star when I read it. I believe it was May. And so I wouldn't mind getting the second book in that series and just continuing on with that and looking at, is it Wisteria Lake? Question number 5 is, what is the biggest disappointment? And I don't really want to talk about this because I had such high hopes for this. It was a 5-star prediction. It was The Song of Achilles. I love the story of Troy. I mean, I love the movie and I love the story of Achilles, but I really didn't like this interpretation of it. I thought there would be a lot more about the war, but it wasn't even mentioned. Excuse my throat, by the way. It wasn't even mentioned until about halfway through, like it wasn't even whispered. And I found Patroclus, I found him to be quite whiny and quite piney. And I just thought he needed to grow up here and toughen up a little bit. And this may be a controversial thing, but I didn't like the queer rep in this book. I thought the steamy scenes were just really uncomfortable and not well written. And so, yeah, I got a 3, and I'm quite salty about that, to be honest. Question number 6 is a biggest surprise, and there's a few books that I can fit into this category for a few different reasons. The most recent one I can talk about is the Rachel incident. And that's a surprise because the main plot of the story went in a completely different direction than I anticipated it would. And that was a good surprise. I think I ended up giving that 4 stars or 4.25. The Traveling Cat Chronicles is another complete surprise, but from the different end. I thought I would love it. I've heard nothing but good things about that. I ended up DNFing it. That was because it was just way too slow for me, like way too slow, like snail's pace slow, and I just can't deal with it. My brain needs to keep going. Some surprises that I wouldn't have even thought about until we did Pokemon was They're Watching You by Chelsea Queso and Let Me In by John Lindqvist. And I went into those purely because they fit a prompt and I came out really enjoying them, and so that was a really nice surprise. Question number 7 is a new favourite author, and I don't really have a new favourite author that I have read this year. I would say Susanna Clarke because of Piranesi, but I've heard very differing opinions about her other book. I will put it up here what the name is. So I'm not really sure that I can call her a favourite author. If the rest of the Tattooist of Auschwitz series is as good as the first, then Heather Morris will definitely become a favourite author. New fictional crush. So if you've read this book, then it's kind of a pretty obvious answer. But that would be Jamie Fraser from Outlander, and he's just I mean, the loyalty to himself and to his clan and his people, but also to Claire. Also the fact that he will stick his neck out for anybody and for the smallest things, even if he's not involved in a situation. He will get involved and then he'll take on those consequences, just so the reputation of those other people isn't ruined. And so that's just Yeah. New favorite character. Question number 9. Lali, I would say, is my new favorite character. He was just so resilient and never lost his kindness in such a dark place. And he did what he had to do in order to survive, but he never lost that kindness. He kept saying, I'm sorry, whenever he tattooed someone. He loved Geeta so fiercely right up until the very end. And I just admire him so much for that. Question number 10 is, what is the book that has made you cry? And am I just a weirdo? I haven't had any books so far this year that have made me cry. There's a couple that got close. Once Were Warriors, I thought would make me cry, but it didn't. I got very close in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and also kind of, actually, no, not really. No, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows didn't get me at all. A book that made you happy, and that would have to be Outlander. It was just such a good book. Yes, it was long, but it was so well written, and I just really enjoyed Claire and Jamie and the banter they had together and the lengths they went to get each other back in situations, and just their love. It just, it made me so happy. This is a very rare instance where I actually enjoyed a romance book. I think that so much romance nowadays is very one dimensional, but with Outlander, I feel like it had so many layers to it, and I was really rooting for them and their individual stories as well as their stories together. So, favorite book to movie adaptations you've seen this year? There are two that I can put in there. First is, actually, there's three that I can put in here. Uh, First is Once Were Warriors. This book and movie are quite old now, but the movie was such a good adaptation. It's classic Kiwi literature and cinema that we all know about as Kiwis, and I think the rest of the world should know about it as well. It is not an easy read, nor is it an easy watch. It's quite hard, but it is well worth it. The second one that I can put on there, it isn't a movie, but it was adapted to a TV series, and that is The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Incredible cast. I think they cast the characters really well. There were quite a few differences between the book and the TV series, but for the most part, it held true. And the series, not the book, but the series actually did make me cry right at the very end. The third one that I can put in there is The Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit I read at the end of June, and it was so good. It was so good, and then I had to go and watch the TV series on Netflix because I enjoyed it so much, and they were actually very close together, the book and the TV series. Now, I would like to read One Life, or the book that kind of goes along with that. It's the story of Nicholas Winton, a man who saved over 600 children from Poland, I believe, in World War II. He sent them to England over to families in order to save them from the Nazis. His story was adopted into a movie with Anthony Hopkins, and when I tell you I cried in this movie, I ugly cried in the cinema, surrounded by a lot of people. I sobbed on several occasions. It was really embarrassing, but that story really moved me so much. I would really like to read the book. Favorite review that you have written this year? That would be How High We Go in the Dark. This was a short review, but I think it was concise enough for people to understand what I liked about the book, which was its interconnectedness within the different stories. I can put it up on the screen for you to read. the most beautiful book purchases this year, and some of them I don't have near me, um, but they are Dowry of Blood, which is just gorgeous. Um, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I really like as well. The cover of that, Bewilderment by Richard Powers, The Island of Missing Trees, Every Hearted Doorway is gorgeous. It's actually it's up there. It's I'll put it on the screen. And I also bought an edition of They Both Die in the End, which I thought was really pretty as well. Question number 15 is a book that you need to read by the end of the year. And like, there's lots of them that I need to read by the end of the year, but I really do need to read Gone Girl. I have had this on my TBR for years and years and years, and I have avoided this book for years and years and years. I love the movie, although it was really hard to move with and understand, and I feel like the book is going to be the same way, and I feel like it's going to be quite confusing, and it doesn't really have a linear pathway. Um, and so for that, I am incredibly intimidated, and I know I shouldn't be. Realistically, it is just ink and paper, but I'm just so intimidated by it, and I think I just need to make the effort. So that was my mid-year freakout tag. I know there are a few repeating books in there, but they really did stick with me. So what have been some of your standout books this year? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, bye bye.